The reason I call it both a border security and a humanitarian crisis is given that changed demographic, we still do face significant numbers of single adults, criminals, smugglers, increased hard narcotics coming between ports of entry. At the same time, we're trying to adjust and respond to a flow of economic migrants coming between ports of entry, many people with legitimate asylum claims, families and children that are really pressuring the system. Just think about that Border Patrol agent patrolling a certain segment of the border who encounters a group of 30 to 50 family members coming across. He's got to call in for backup, got to respond, got to take care of them, make sure they get across the river safely. And at the same time, we know that there are criminals and smugglers bringing drugs across in that same sector, using that family group as a diversion. They've charged them $5,000 to $7,000 per person to make the journey from Central America to our border, $500 just to get across the river. That last step is a huge profit center for violent criminal groups right on the border. So this is not a victimless crime to cross the border illegally. It puts people at risk, it puts our agents at risk, it enables smugglers to bring narcotics and other substances across, and it's a huge profit center for the most violent criminal organizations of the world. So we've got these really vulnerable populations in the hands of violent criminals, and they're coming on a promise that they'll be allowed to stay in the U.S. when really only 10 to 20% have valid claims of protection and asylum once their immigration proceeding is completed. So there's a huge mismatch in this dynamic, in the legal framework, in what we're doing in terms of alignment of policy with Mexico, and the push factors in Central America, and the aid that we need to talk about today. But I think there are solutions. I think there are opportunities partnering with the Central American government as well as the incoming administration in Mexico to address all of this. But it's a different challenge than we face historically, and it's both a border security and humanitarian crisis.
I'm struck by your statistic that you put out there. 59%, almost 2/3 of the migrants are women and children, families from Central America. What explains that shift? Do you have a sense of, you were just in Central America, right. You saw it on the ground with your own eyes and your team.
Sure.
Give us a sense of why is that occurring?
Yeah, there are a number of dynamics in terms of why we see push factors from Central America driving this migration. I do have to start briefly with the pull factors though. And the reason that the population has changed so much from single adults to families and children is the awareness and recognition actually being advertised by smugglers who start this at a retail level, almost like a travel agency in communities in Central America, saying if you bring a child with you, you will be released if you cross the border illegally, and you'll be allowed to stay in the United States. And so the phenomenon that we're seeing is a direct response to our gaps in our legal framework that don't allow for the completion of an immigration proceeding and repatriation of those who don't have valid asylum or protection claims. So that first and foremost, our system and our pull factors, our broken system, are inviting and incentivizing these groups to come. So
if I can break in, is that a congressional issue or is it
absolutely.
A regulatory issue?
It's statutory.
Mm-hmm.
It's statutory. There are three elements. We're unable to keep a family together in custody through an immigration proceeding. They have to be released within 20 days. There's a huge gap in the asylum process from the initial assessment of if someone has a fear of return to their home country. About 85% of those who claim fear are passing that initial assessment. But at the end of the process with an immigration judge, we're really only seeing 10 to 20% actually having a valid asylum claim. So there's a 3 to 5 year period where you're in the U.S. Many don't even actually file an asylum claim what they're supposed to within a year of arrival. So there's a huge mismatch. And then, of course, for children, for a child from Mexico who comes across illegally, they're returned to Mexico, to the Health and Human Services Department. But for countries further away under the statute, they're not allowed to be repatriated that way. So those are the statutory issues that kind of create the pull factors.